All right, well, hello everyone. Welcome again to Zooming In with Professor Smith. Today we are here with Dennis Haywood, and let me just give you guys a brief introduction. Dennis and I, went to high school together, so we've known each other. I was just thinking about this, Dennis, since 1984, which really dates me, and I don't want to do that, but oh well. So that's a really long time. And I mean, I'm blown away by your bio, and I kind of thought I knew some of the things you've been up to. So I'm really excited to have you here today. The students are excited. So I'm going to go ahead and start and read your bio, and then we'll get into the questions that they have for you. Okay. All right. So Dennis Haywood, raised in Pasadena, California, Dennis was a teenager during the crack cocaine epidemic of the late 80s and the early 90s, as well as the Just Say No campaigns led by then First Lady Nancy Reagan. He experienced large amounts of money at a young age, but he also felt the wrath of the war on drugs being overseen by United States drug czar William Bennett. Arrested in Sacramento, California, and charged in federal court, Special Deputy United States Bennett was flown in from Washington, D.C. to personally prosecute and make an example out of Mr. Haywood. Dennis was sentenced to 10 years on count 1, possession with intent to distribute cocaine base, and 5 years on count 2, use of a firearm. You were sentenced to 180 months under the new mandatory sentencing guidelines. Okay, got it. So you served 8 years, 10 months. Dennis first recalls how to write a story being taught to him by Mr. Franco, his 10th grade English teacher at Pasadena High School. Mr. Franco taught proficiency English for the standard California proficiency examination taken by all 10th graders. While Mr. Haywood was serving his federal prison sentence at Terminal Island, he attended Chapman University, where he honed his writing skills. Mr. Haywood is the author of 8 books and a publisher of 10 through his company, Concrete Jungle Publishing. Dennis started the Pasadena Black Pages, an online news source for African Americans in Pasadena and Altadena, California. He feels like he was part of the destruction of the community, and this is one way he helps to rebuild it. Dennis directed and edited his first film, Thorns on the Rose: Black Abuse, Corruption, and the Pasadena Police, in 2021. In February 2022, Dennis launched a nonprofit, the Pasadena African American Film Foundation, to teach local youth how to not only make films, but to learn all the jobs on a film set. The first film under this foundation is, how do you pronounce it, Dennis? Zenzas, which we can see right here in front of us. A revolutionary activist who was released in February Zenzas, a revolutionary activist. That's the name of the film? And it was released just last month, correct? Okay. So the last time I read a bio like this, Dennis, I kind of just took a nap afterwards. That's a lot, but I mean, kudos to you. And like I said before, we know there's a lot more to it than this, but quite a bit. So thank you so much for being here with us. And as I mentioned to you, I'm teaching a class called Writing for Media here in upstate New York, and a lot of our students here, they want to get into the film industry. They want to write, they want to produce, they want to act, they want to be authors. Some of them want to be behind the scenes, podcasting, you name it, everything that media would entail. And I found that even though we're only about an hour from the city, a lot of these students haven't had an opportunity to go to New York City proper for whatever reason. So this class is really just trying to expose students to all things media, have them meet you guys, interact with you by way of social media if you're into that after this particular interview, and just really give them an idea of what it might take and what it might be like to work in media today. That's really kind of what the purpose of this is. So with that in mind, the first question from our class is, what is Pasadena Black Pages, and why did you want to start your own publication?
The Pasadena Black Pages is an online newspaper. We cover issues from the people's point of view rather than the city's point of view, because they always tell you what they want you to hear, but I live in the community, I live in the neighborhood. So I get a different view and a different intake on things that happen in the community. I started it because there is another local newspaper, a Black newspaper, but every time I tried to write something, he wouldn't let me. So I just said, I'm gonna start my own, because we live in a digital age and your resources are unlimited. And all it takes is for you to learn how to do some things, and you can do whatever you want to do. So that's what I did. I started my own publication, and we have like 20,000 followers on social media, and we do pretty well.
Okay. I mean, and just because, like I said, I've known you for a minute, I think, a lot of the students now, that wouldn't sound, maybe like, to me, it's like, wow, because I mean, that we just didn't do that kind of stuff, or I didn't do that kind of stuff, right? Most times somebody told you no, you kept asking, maybe, until they said yes. But the fact that you said, okay, well, I'm gonna take this no, and like, you know what, I got it, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Where did you even know how to, like, where did the resources come from? Where did you get the knowledge from? I mean, how did you just all of a sudden know how to do this? How?
So when I got out of prison in 1996, my godbrother, Donald, I went to live with him, and he had a computer store. So even though I had been gone for 9 years, I still came home, and I had a computer when people didn't have computers or the internet, and I had both. So he gave me a computer, and I just started messing with it. And I just taught myself everything, basically. I never took a class. I never, nothing. I just taught myself. I asked questions. I started buying the dummy books, right. HTML for dummies and all kind of stuff, and reading the books. And I just taught myself how to maneuver around that computer. And basically, I've been living off of it since 1996.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, I already know that in one way or another, if it hasn't been already, that your life is going to be on the big screen, because it's just pretty amazing. But even just that in and of itself, like I said, again, today I think that's more common. But even now today, they have YouTube, they have all kinds of information, and like you're saying, you just figured it out. You had a computer and you figured it out. Like, it was never nothing formal, and I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, really, people didn't even have cell phones at that time. Like, a cell phone was a privilege to have in 1996.
Right. So, I remember you had to talk on the phone on the weekends, if that, right? Or after 5 or something, right?
After 9 o'clock at night, stuff like that. So.
I remember the first time I talked on my cell phone, during the business day or whatever, and I got that bill and I was like, never again, right? So yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about. That is unbelievable. Wow. All right. Well,
so I guess I just lucked up,
I mean, whatever it is, it was meant for you to do. Obviously, look at how long you've been doing it, right? But I mean, it's just pretty amazing that you just started from, wanting to write for a publication, not being allowed to, and just decided, I'm gonna do my own thing. That's a powerful message in and of itself. So the next student wants to know, how do you pick the topics for Pasadena Black Pages?
I don't really pick the topics. I interview people who have businesses in the community. I've interviewed Professor Smith, but really, the news is dictated by what happens on the streets. So that's how it goes. Things happen, and we talk about it. That's the cycle. Other than me reaching out to people and saying, "Hey, can I highlight you in your business?"
Okay, and so you have a staff of about how many now?
Oh, it's just me.
It's just you? Okay. Yeah, I thought you had a staff.
So I do everything. Like, I do the graphics, I do everything. I do everything.
No,
I have people who help me.
Right.
Like, I have people who help me from time to time, and people send me articles and stuff, but it's my business. Right. And I believe, like, that's the best way to do business, is to have your own.
No, and I mean, yeah, I mean, true that for real. But I thought you had a staff. Like, I know you started it, but I thought now you had like a staff because of how can you be everywhere? How can you know all these things? How can, you know what I mean? This is what I'm thinking. So that's even more impressive to know that it's still mainly just you. And obviously you're getting, you know, like you just said, people send you stuff, but that's pretty impressive. Okay, so keep it small, keep it within yourself, right? I mean, that's working for you. That's working for you.
Because then you don't have to worry about, you just don't have to worry about other egos, you know. And I just like to report for the people. You know, sometimes it gets me in trouble with the city, but that's what I'm here for, though, to make good trouble, you know? So that's what I'm here for.
I love that expression, good trouble. Well, this next question is kind of perfect then, because if you're like a one-man show, you are the Pasadena Black Pages, does it take a lot of patience to be in the field that you're in? That's a question from a student.
Yeah, it takes a lot of patience. But once they know who you are and they know what you do, they treat you just like anybody else. Like, okay, so the Tournament of Roses Parade every year, my little publication has a permanent spot on the corner of Colorado and Orange Grove, right next to ABC and NBC and all of those stations, because you are what you make it to be. Like, if you have a product and you say my product is $50, don't take less than 50. So if I'm multimedia, I have publications, a magazine. I didn't mention the magazine. I do everything that they do, so treat me the same, you know?
And I mean, even though most of the, you know, I mean, I shouldn't assume what students know, but I know that if you know anything about the Rose Parade and the spot you just mentioned, like you just said, that's prime. That's it right there, right? So the fact.
Yeah, that's it. So they treat me the same. When they see me, they, hi, Dennis, how you know? I mean, and it's crazy that it's crazy.
Yeah, you identified yourself. You are now the voice of Pasadena, and that is pretty remarkable that you got your own spot. That's good for me to know, Dennis, when I come back home.
Oh, no doubt.
No, that's awesome. All right, so let me go to the next question from the student. They say, I know Mr. Franco introduced you to writing in high school, but what made you start writing or want to?
When I was in prison and I was going to Chapman University, we had a professor that used to come in, and I can't remember her name, but she was really good, and she taught English. So she taught journalism. So she taught all of the journalism courses because they didn't want multiple people coming into the prison. So she taught, each semester, she taught another journalism course. And she always told me, like, you know, you could write. She's like, you could write. You need to write. You need to think about writing as a career. She said, because you could really write. She said, you tell good stories. You know how to structure everything already. But how I learned that, though, was reading Donald Goines' books. Okay. So once I told myself I wanted to write a book, he was my favorite author. So I just looked at the books rather than reading them. I studied them, how he wrote. And that's how I adapted my style.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I mean, and I'm saying this because, you know, before I got a formal degree in writing, which, you know, is for some people it is, some people it isn't. You know, obviously it's not necessary to write. If you want to write, I tell students just write. You know, if you want to, you just do it. But I mean, it's like you learned all these things, you know, on your own, the same way kind of you're taught in a formal writing program, right? They teach you that if you want to write for a publication, study the publication and see how they write. If you really want to write like this certain author, study that author. So that's essentially what you did. Instinctively, you knew to do that. And I just think that's really interesting, you know, that self-taught, but you know all of these things that, you know, some people have to go to school to learn. So obviously you're a natural, that's pretty amazing. So the next student wants to know, what are your films about?
So all of the films that I make will be about something social, economical, so Thorns on the Roads, we have a real problem in Pasadena with the police department and the Black community. And over the years, they have killed 12 men. Since 1993, they've killed 12 Black men. And no Black officer has ever shot anybody in Pasadena. It's all white officers or Mexican officers. So it's a lot of racial tension. And I just wanted to, I made the documentary, and this is the truth. In the middle of the pandemic, I didn't have anything to do, so I'm making this documentary about about all of the stuff, right? And George Floyd got killed. So right when I finished the film, the next person in the United States that got killed by police got killed a half a mile away from me. And it was Anthony McClain, and I went around the corner that night, and I saw that, and then I added all that to the film, and it was just crazy because there's a part in the film that says, like, we didn't know where it was gonna happen. We knew it was gonna happen again, but it happened right here on Raymond and Washington.
Wow.
And the new film is about Michael Zenzas, who is one of the greatest men to ever live, a great man. He did a lot of things all over the world, from starting the gang truce in Los Angeles to helping Namibia become a free country away from South Africa. So he did a lot of things, and he was from Pasadena. And I just want his name and his legacy to be remembered.
Okay, and I'm sure it will be. So this kind of feeds into this next question too, and I didn't set this up, but I'll take credit. So how do you get funding? How do you is this all something that you're financing, or are you getting funding from different sources? Like if you want to decide to make a film about something, how do you do that? Or is it because we now have our phones and all this access that we can just kind of start shooting ourselves?
All of that. So it's phone footage. I just was doing what I was doing for years, and I accumulated all of this footage, right? So when I decided to make the first documentary, most of the footage was mine. And my partner, James Farr, he did a piece on one of the victims, so I got that from him. But the film made about $10,000 last year, and we gave away $8,000 on a scholarship to a kid from John Muir High School who goes to Lehigh University now. We gave him an $8,000 scholarship. So I make them films, and we give the money away. So however it got to be done to be made, that's what we do, and then we give the money back to the community through a social justice scholarship.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, well, again, next question sounds like you might have already touched on it, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask it because the student wanted to know which aspect of your job, and I guess you can pick whatever job you want because you got a lot of them, is most rewarding to you.
Last week we had the premiere of Zenzas, and we were at a theater, and the conversation after the film, the crowd of people was very diverse, and we had a really, really good conversation. I think that's really gratifying to know that you started something from scratch, and now these people are here, and you have this conversation going on. It's not about me, it's about what I did. Like the project is what the conversation is about. And it was thought-provoking for me to hear someone say that they're a teacher in PUSD and they had no idea who Michael Zenzas is, and he needs to be studied in the schools. So now, just from that night, they're talking about changing the name of Blair High School to Michael Zenzas High School. They want to change La Pinaresta Park to Michael Zenzas Park, and they want it to be a part of the curriculum in PUSD.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I had never heard of him either until, you sent me the link and I checked it out. Um, that's pretty amazing though. And like you said, it's not about you, but it kind of is, because without you, it wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean?
It's
So,
about the work. It's about the work that
right,
I do,
right.
but yeah, it's, I mean, James, he knows, like, I don't know. We go to places, I tell him, don't point me out. Don't even tell him, just do your thing. You know what I mean? I just do it because it needs to be done,
Right.
not
But
for act.
the impact though, I mean, if they end up changing this, any one of those things would be a major accomplishment. So imagine if they do it, if they change the high school, if they add the curriculum, you know what I mean? If they change the name of the park, he lives on forever. So that's, I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, because from being from here, how they revel in Jackie Robinson, like Jackie Robinson, he got statues and parks and everything, but he left and never came back. Michael Zun, and he was chosen to do what he did. He didn't do it because that's what he wanted to do. He was chosen because he was the good one to use at that time. But Michael Zenzan, everything he did, he chose to do. You know, he chose to fight the police. He chose to help other countries. He was a great man. And I think sometimes we idolize the wrong people. We idolize who they tell us to idolize instead of the people who really, really were willing to get down in the trenches.
Right. Well, and I knew that this kind of conversation with us would naturally happen. I had some questions, a little bit later for this, but I mean, it's kind of like I was just saying this last week because, we just had Black History Month, and there's always this rush in February to get all this, information and these pieces and this footage. And it's like, but we're here all year. You know what I mean? We don't have to just try to get these 28 days to try to get, a lifetime and generations worth of information. But it's the same with our leaders and our heroes. It's like the ones we learn about in school. You would think there's maybe only 5, maybe 7, and then that's it. So I love that you have, honed in on someone who not only is crucial to the community, but like you said, stayed there, right? And just did all these amazing things. And I think we need to continue to do that, to highlight, more people and what they've done. And it's not to take away from Jackie Robinson. Nothing is taking away from him. But like you said, it's in Pasadena, that's all you see. It's like he's the only person that ever did anything ever, right? So, so I love that. And I really appreciate that work. So I think you might have answered this again, but this student wanted to know, out of all of your accomplishments, this is the most recent, but out of all of them, which are you the most proud? And if it's the same, it's the same, but was a different student with that question.
I would say publishing my first book, and just because I did it. Like everything I tell myself I'm gonna do, I do it. Period. It's nothing in life so far that I haven't told myself that I was gonna do that I haven't done. So I just keep adding to the list.
Was it a self-published book?
It was self-published.
Okay, so what was it like holding the book in your hand, seeing your name, both, reading, what about, like, when was it like, I did that? Like you just said, I did that. This is my book. These are my words.
When I got my first response, when somebody called me and said, hey, I just got through reading your book, and someone else called me and said that her son, she was picking her son up from school every day. Now he was like 12 years old. So she said she started wondering why he was so quiet in the back seat. And then after about 5 days, she realized that he had read my book on the way home from school every day. That's what he was doing, was reading the book. And then he started asking her about it. And I just was like, wow,
So it was her book, but how did he get the book? Was it his mother's book and he just picked it up?
Yeah, it was his mother's book, and he picked it up.
Wow.
And, it's just the response, the reaction to something that people can relate to.
Right.
especially during that time, like people just, it was the LA books, like about Los Angeles, how things really were. So people could really relate to the books.
And so the students know, what is the name of the book?
Um, my first book was Retaliation by Dennis Haywood. The second book was Cash Flow, Chester Treat. I'm gonna send you the links.
I was gonna say, yeah, I know there's a few of them, but you can send me the link and I'll post it in the classroom. But yeah, I know there's a few of them. So, all right. So then the next student wants to know, Dennis, are any of your personal stories, which you kind of just said this, are any of your personal stories a topic for your films? So
No, not me, not any of my personal stories.
okay.
It's just documentaries about people. So I'm not really, it's crazy because I used to want to make a fiction film, but then I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. It's enough of that. It's not enough history being taught. It's not enough information about people who will make you strive for more, you know? We were just talking the other day and I was like, man, they showing Black Panther, the film out here, right? For Black History Month. I'm like, that's not Black history. That's fiction. You know what I mean? Like all of the films that you have that actually have something to do with Black history, they chose not to show a film about Black history. They chose to show fiction. So I'm dealing in reality. You know, it's enough empires and powers and all of that stuff on television right now. You know?
Right, right. Well, I mean, and we appreciate that too, because like you said, there is a lot, you know, of all that, and and everything has its place, I guess. But like you said,
I mean, I watch those shows, yeah. You know, but that's for entertainment for me. You right. know, this is not entertainment. This is reality.
Reality, like you said, and it's just not enough of it. No, that makes complete sense. All right, so the next student wants to know, how do you become a publisher? Don't you have to be, I love this question, don't you have to be a big company in New York, close to where we are, to do what you're doing?
No, you just need to find a printer.
Okay.
That's all you need. You start you a publishing company, okay. and you get you a ISBN number. It's easy. Is it free? I think it's like $10 or something. It right. used to be, and it's not expensive. Okay. And now they have digital printers that it's not even that expensive to print the books like it used to be. You know, so you could get 5,000 books for about $5,000, which is a good investment if you're gonna hustle. But right. It's a hustle. Miss Smith, no. Yes. Writing is a hustle. It is. You know, it don't come easy. So it's a hustle game. It's just like everything else.
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm glad that you said that, because that is one word that if you didn't know what that word meant before the pandemic, you know what I mean? You should know now. And if you don't know now, you're not gonna know, right? If you don't know that, I mean, almost everything is a hustle, but writing is most definitely a hustle. So let me ask you this. The student wants to know, well, I don't know, the way that this is worded is kind of weird. Kind of like, how did you break through? Because you've already talked about that. You made your own lane. So you kind of already answered that. So I'll go ahead and ask the next question. What are your upcoming projects? Do you have anything that you're working on right now?
Right now we're about to do some film festivals. Hopefully we'll be in New York at the Black Panther Film Festival in October. Okay. And the next project is about redlining and housing, because it's a big story out here behind that too. You know, that's why we all lived in the same neighborhood growing up, you know? And so that's the next project, but we're gonna do San Francisco Film Festival, few film festivals over the summer and just push Michael Zenzas because we feel like the world needs to know about it.
Okay. Well, you know what I want to do definitely again, I think I wanted, because I personally have a lot of questions that I wanted to ask you, but I didn't realize that the time was already kind of, wrapping up. So I would love if we could sit down and do this again, Dennis, and maybe get to some of the stuff that I wanted to talk to you specifically about, more about the crack cocaine epidemic, how that's different from the opioid crisis. I can't get my words out today, but just really kind of, what's going on with, Black Lives Matter, all the stuff that's happening in the news, the piece I just wrote, all the stuff that you already know about. I really wanted to talk about that, but we're running short on time. So if you would agree to that, we could revisit that another time. But I did want to. Okay, awesome. I did want to ask this one final question though from the student, and that is, what advice do you have for other filmmakers?
Do it. If that's what you want to learn how to do, then get in where you can. You're in New York, so there's a lot of filming going on, and if that's what you want to do, pursue it, because you don't really have to have a college education. But if you want to get into electric or being a grip or whatever, you have to have those skills. But you could get in being a PA, just volunteer on a film set. A lot of people came up like that, just volunteering to be a PA and go for it, and they learn the industry, because you can learn the industry right there. You don't have to go to school.
Right.
But if you want to be a writer, like you take these classes to write, but I'm saying that there's no degree in filmmaking.
Right. No,
I mean, there is. You could get a degree, but you really is. Says who? Who says that this degree?
On college campus, so we're gonna just say you do. Okay. All right. but the advice is to do it. I got it. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And like I said, we're definitely gonna do maybe like a part 2 or something to this, because there was a lot of questions that I wanted to get into. So I will definitely reach out to you, but I really want to thank you for your time today, and I will definitely be in touch.
Okay.
All right. And bye with Mr. Farr.